so bad. And I say, hey, 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 it's just an ordinary day, and it's all your state of mind. At the end of the day, you just got to say it's alright. Janie sings on the corner.
Well, as a matter of fact, I will. Jim sent me an email yesterday to Mike at 570news.com. What a month it was for you, writes Jim. Great job stick handling through the Farwell for Hire campaign and your tireless work in support of cystic fibrosis research. As the fundraising activity is winding down in June, you are probably looking forward to a less hectic pace and more ordinary days. I suggest you begin your show with a tune from the Canadian folk rock band Great Big Sea, Ordinary Day. You deserve it, says Jim. Jim, I love me some Alan Doyle and Great Big Sea, and so it is my pleasure to play Ordinary Day to start our show today. And yes, it does feel a little more ordinary. I put on ordinary clothes today, although I kind of miss the ease of just getting up and putting on a Farwell for Hire t-shirt every day. But we had ourselves a heck of a month indeed, and it culminated with a whale of a weekend, which I'll tell you more about. But that weekend included a meeting with none other than Jeff Wenzel and his lovely wife, Jen, our 50-50 jackpot winners on Friday, $121,000 plus. And yes, I made Jeff buy my beer when I saw him at Block 3 yesterday. That's how this works when you win $121,000 plus. He says he's going to pay off the mortgage and probably get a new family vehicle. It was great to meet them. Thanks to everyone who played along with us. And I heard from so many people on the weekend who were listening and waiting for that phone call on Friday. And it didn't come to them. But they realized, you know what? We threw in some money for a good cause anyway. And that you certainly did. We are improving the quality of life for young people living with cystic fibrosis today and older people too. And most importantly, we are getting closer to that cure. Thank you for all the support. We'll give you an update of the final numbers once we've collected all the receipts and tallied things up. I've got just two questions, though. Two questions, if I may, as we start the show today. Question number one. Why did I have my seat heater on this morning? Like, okay, I admit I'm a bit of a wuss, but come on with your coming on. It was seat heater worthy weather this morning. It is June the ding-dang 2nd. It's not supposed to be that cold. You know, on Saturday, May the 31st, temperature of 7 degrees when I began my Farwell for Hire day, felt like -2, according to my weather app. On May 31st, this is entirely unacceptable. The other question I have is, why have they not started playing the Stanley Cup yet? Like, what? You guys know that it's Edmonton and Florida in it, right? Like, we've known that for like a week. Start playing the ding-dang games. It wouldn't be the worst idea, unless you're waiting for the weather to get even worse and it feels more like winter out there. Jiminy Christmas. All right, my good friend, he promised he would do this. He's a man of his word. My good friend, Chef D, is on the phone with me this morning. I saw Sheffy on Friday night. He was involved in my Farwell for Hire fundraising, making a meal for all of us. Delicious, as always. Good morning, Sheffy.
Good morning, Mr. Farwell. And how are you today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, the sun's out. By the time I leave, it'll at least be an acceptable temperature, so that's okay.
I sure hope so, brother. I sure hope so. This is ridiculous. But, because your team went a little bit farther than my team, just a touch. They didn't play really good hockey in that series, but I had a few hiccups in May, as we all know, and I haven't come on to, congratulate your team going 1 week farther than my team.
Sheffy, you are a good and honorable man. A few people were asking, in fact, many were saying, why is Chef D so quiet? He was going on about his team, the team that shall not be named, and then the playoffs come, and it's a very quick exit for Sheffy's team. And even though my team only went one round further, they seem, come on, buddy, we played a lot more games. We were two and a half weeks longer still playing. Come on. Yeah.
You know.
We are just proving, Sheffy, that even fans of opposite hockey teams can still be friends.
100%, brother, 100%. And congratulations, another great campaign. You and your beautiful bride do so much good work, and I know the community is behind you. So thank you, community, because we live in a community that really does give a damn. And I'm pretty impressed to live in our region.
You and me both. Very well said, sir. I look forward to continuing our conversations about hockey when the next season begins. Who do you like in the Stanley Cup, Sheffy?
I'm going for Edmonton all the way, brother. Like, it's time.
It's time.
The cup comes north. It
absolutely is. Last time it came north was when, I forget the team that won it, but back in 1993, yeah. Sheffy, make it a great day.
You too, brother. You take care.
Thanks, buddy. You too. Our good friend Sheffy, you were wondering where he's been. He did have his share of family challenges in the month of May, as you probably know. But he's here. He's supporting the community with helping us fundraise, and he's taking his lumps as a fan of the team that shall not be named.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 to start our show this Monday morning. Number 1, where'd they go? Questions being asked after the departure of 3 senior officials in Cambridge in just 3 months. The city's chief financial officer, its chief planner, and its manager of special events have all left their jobs without notice from the city and without any farewell announcement or replacement search announced by the city. Now, under strong mayor powers, Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett does have the power to dismiss senior staff. Number 2, Canada's premiers are meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney today in Saskatoon. It's the first in-person meeting between the country's leaders since the federal election to pitch which major projects they think should get fast-tracked. The recent campaign saw Carney vow to slash federal approval times on major infrastructure projects considered to be in the national interest. They're also expected to discuss breaking down interprovincial trade barriers to make it easier to buy Canadian-made goods from other provinces and territories. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canada Post has rejected a request from the union representing thousands of its workers to send their ongoing labor dispute to binding arbitration. The company says it wants to, quote, restore stability, and binding arbitration would do the opposite. It has asked Federal Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu to force a union membership vote on its latest proposals. Those include a 14% cumulative wage hike over 4 years and part-time staff on weekend shifts, which has been a major sticking point in the talks. Number 4, the Bank of Canada, widely expected to hold its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.75% this week. Many economists expect the trade dispute will really start to pressure Canada's economy in the second quarter. They warn keeping borrowing costs high could come back to bite the central bank later. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the London Knights are Memorial Cup champions, beating Medicine Hat 4-1 in last night's final. London joins Windsor, Kamloops, and Cornwall as the only CHL franchises to win 3 Memorial Cups since 1972. London last one in 2016. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. You are listening to the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We have turned the calendar to the month of June. We have awarded a monster, I do mean monster, jackpot in our Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle. Congratulations once again to Jeff Wenzel, who won our jackpot on Friday. And I'm sorry to all of you who were disappointed that we did not phone you on Friday afternoon. But thank you for recognizing, as I heard from so many this weekend, the money was going to a good cause anyway. And that indeed it was. Still, as we move into June, a couple of things that you can participate in just to help us tie a bow on the 2025 fundraising campaign. One of them is this Thursday. I'm going to assume it will be weather permitting, but ding dang it, if the weather doesn't start permitting more outdoor activities, I might just go somewhere that we can find weather that allows outdoor activities. Anyway, Thursday afternoon, this Thursday afternoon, the 5th, at the Research and Tech Park, Hagee Boulevard, University of Waterloo. We're going to have an outdoor beer garden with the Research and Tech Park. They do this for us every year, so I'm looking at it because it's happening on Thursday as a nice way just to celebrate a busy fundraising month, hang out, and have a celebratory beverage together. So please do join us starting at 2. Just take some time off. Leave office early. It doesn't matter. Everybody's fine. It's June now. The weather's going to be nice. We can have an outdoor beverage together, celebrate a great fundraising campaign, and put a little bit more into the coffers as we wind things down. And please also mark your calendar for June the 15th. That is a Sunday. That is Father's Day. We're going to be with the father of asparagus, the godfather of asparagus himself, Tim Barry, out at Barry's Asparagus Farm and Country Market. June the 15th for our deep fried asparagus day in partnership with the Schmuck Truck. Brad and Christine will be there. We'll take the asparagus off the field into the Schmuck Truck for some deep frying. Comes out the other side with some garlic aioli. It is delicious, and we fundraise through that as well. So this Thursday at the R&T Park in Waterloo, and then on Sunday, June the 15th, come on out for some deep fried asparagus. And then I promise, I'll leave you alone for another 11 months or so, okay? But these are fun events. You can fill your belly, you can wet your whistle, and we'll have a good time together as we wind up one more Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign. It was an incredible weekend. I mentioned earlier when Chef D phoned. He was part of an event put on by our good friend Alison Lopes from Dominion Lending. She invites colleagues. We have a dinner. We have a meal together. Sometimes it's a lunch. This time it was a dinner. We pass the hat and we collect more money for cystic fibrosis research. And Alison puts on an excellent party. And we certainly enjoyed our time there. And then on Saturday, it was another party. I know, it's tough to fundraise when you're just partying all the time, right? Wasn't it Eddie Murphy that sang the song? My girl wants to party all the time. He should have stuck to Beverly Hills Cop. And I should stick to talking on the radio, not even trying to sing, right? But we partied again on Saturday, and did we ever party in a big way? I know I said this late last week, but I'll say it again. Where would we be without you, Wilmot? And I mean no disrespect to the other W townships, Wellesley and Woolwich, not to mention North Dumfries, but Wilmot Township has come through in such a massive way for us during Farwell for Hire, including, of course, our good friends and partners at TLC Pet Food. And the Cuttis family, which owns and operates TLC Pet Food, had a big old party on Saturday to celebrate the opening of their brand new facility, which is breathtaking. It's about 4 times the size of its original facility. They've been in business 31 years, and this is a made-in-Waterloo region success story. And I loved listening to Eric Cuttis, the president, in his speech on Saturday, just talking about all of the various local and or Canadian businesses that are part of the TLC family, how they get to do what they do, which is like they were the pioneers of delivering the dog food or the pet food, they do cat food too, right to your door. You don't even have to think about it. You get on the schedule, boom, it shows up when you need it. And that's the magic of what TLC Pet Food was doing way before anybody else started doing it. But all of these different businesses that are associated with TLC Pet Food, it's a great story, and it's right there in New Hamburg. Thanks to TLC Pet Food and the Cuttis family, they inspired one of those business partners, Elmira Pet Products, to donate $5,000 to our campaign because Elmira Pet Products, in honor of the grand opening, wanted to do something meaningful for TLC, so we get $5,000. And then the Cuttis family and TLC put another $10,000 into our campaign. So on May the 31st, we picked up another $15,000 for cystic fibrosis research, all inspired by TLC Pet Food, the Cuttis family, and beautiful Wilmot Township. I speechless after all of this, and it's going a long way towards improving lives in our community. You heard Chef D say it a moment ago. It's a pretty incredible place to live. And that's one of the things I love most about what we've been able to do with Farwell for Hire. There's not somebody writing a big, fat $150,000 check to us. It just comes from the grassroots, your individual contributions, whether it's 50 or $100 over here or a 50-50 ticket over there, and then small to medium-sized businesses chipping in with $1,000, $2,500, $5,000, $10,000. It adds up to tremendous success and progress towards a cure for cystic fibrosis. We love you, Wilmot. We love you, Waterloo Region. And we're really happy to be members of this community. And your support for our fundraising and for cystic fibrosis means the world to families in our community. Something was supposed to happen this weekend that apparently did not. And we're going to have to call it out, because we do that on this show. We call out what was supposed to happen and didn't, and see if we can get it fixed. I'll fill you in on that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Something we talked about on the show last week, those darn train horns blasting at all hours of the day and night in the Lancaster and Victoria area, because Metrolinx is doing some work on the lines there. Of course, this work was supposed to end about 3 weeks ago. It's running overtime. Shocking. But also, because the work is running longer than it was supposed to, these train horns continue going off, and it is a real disruption in the neighborhood. But not to worry. We were told that thanks to our advocacy, the train horns would stop, effective, according to Metrolinx, May the 30th, Friday at 10 p.m. Metrolinx said it had reactivated 3 of the 4 warning signs at the crossing and will have a security guard during overnight hours to support the 4th location. This goes back to what we talked about. This is commonsensical stuff, but we have this abundance of caution around train tracks because we can't be trusted to not walk on them when there are trains around. Like, look both ways before you cross the tracks apparently doesn't work anymore. So you need a person physically there to prevent you from crossing. It's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, the horns were supposed to stop on Friday night. According to Janice, who sends an email this morning to Mike at 570news.com, can confirm that the powers that be that said trains blowing their horns all night would be done June 1st are liars. Last night was another of many nights getting constantly awakened by them, and I'm 1 kilometer away in the central Frederick neighborhood. I don't know how people living right there haven't lost their minds yet. This has got to stop. Janice, I appreciate the email and letting us know that the horns continue to be a bother to you. Hey, Metrolinx, how about this? Finish the work. You're already overtime. And also, you don't need the horns going off like that. You just don't. Let's apply some common sense to this situation. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center. And then Ontario's Catholic Teachers Association says the provincial government is slowly and intentionally eroding local democracy. How? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Roger.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
We've seen school boards wasting resources on endless discussions just to change school names. Our plan would establish ministerial authority to oversee school naming and to limit the time and money that boards spend on that. We've also proposed changes that would require boards to welcome school resource officers into schools, where they are offered by local police services. These programs help build relationships between youth and police and actively promote a positive behavior and create a culture of mutual respect. We need to remove politics from the classroom and focus on policies that will help keep students safe. Now, let me be clear. When I see waste, mismanagement, or any board falling short of its core responsibility to make decisions in the best interest of students, I will not hesitate to act, because parents deserve confidence that their children's education is being protected.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is Ontario's Education Minister Paul Calandra at a news conference last week where, as you hear, he outlines plans for the Ministry of Education to take some greater control, or at least apply some greater oversight to school boards across the province. Jeff Pellick is the president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, Waterloo Region, joins us to talk about it. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
How do you feel about what the minister had to say last week?
Disappointed and a little bit frustrated, and I think that anybody from all sides of the political spectrum need to have concerns when a government is looking at overruling democratically elected trustees in their decision-making to force their own agenda and their own ideologies.
What is it, or where is it, that the Education Ministry overreaches here when it comes to what school boards are doing?
Well, in the bill itself, it's quite open-ended in when the government can take control. And in the past, there have been situations of financial accountability where the Minister of Education could appoint a supervisor or order a forensic audit. But with this new bill, it's giving the Minister of Education the authority to initiate an investigation, issue a binding direction to a school board, or to put a school board under supervision when there's concerns of a matter of public interest. And I guess my question is, how do we define a matter of public interest? And in the bill itself, there are some descriptors, again, very open-ended. And so our concern is, where does this lead? And where is that line between what a local trustee has the authority to implement, and when does the government feel as though it needs to step in? And that's where we're concerned.
I think sometimes, Jeff, folks get kind of confused about this whole system where, what trustees are responsible for, et cetera. And you're not a trustee. You're an education union leader. Can you explain to us what the relationship is between yourself as an education union leader and school board trustees? What's that relationship like?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to recognize that the trustees represent the broader community at the school board level as far as the decisions and the policies that the board initiates. And while they don't get involved in the day-to-day operation of a school board, they do have a tremendous amount of authority to set direction with the board. And when you look at the two issues that the Ford government has identified, the school resource officers and also the naming of schools, currently those are issues that our local trustees have authority over. And I would say, as far as the relationship between education unions and workers with the trustees, we've been really lucky over the last decade or even longer to have a really good working relationship with trustees, that they do take into account the experiences of the employees of the WRDSB, and they do listen to us. And over the last year or so, I will say they have taken great strides, at least in Waterloo, to look at violence in schools and try to identify what the issues are and try to move forward and really are trailblazing in our province as far as asking the board for more information and bringing this issue to light. And so overall, it's a good relationship, and it's an important one, because I can tell you some of the issues that we try to bring forward to the government are simply ignored.
I guess one of the big questions that comes from that is, while financial accountability is incredibly important, and I think we need that at the local level to manage these things, and then the province can have that oversight and, if needed, perhaps bring in that supervisor. But I think it begs the question, Jeff, whether or not school boards and school board trustees should be involved in renaming schools or determining whether or not school resource officers belong there.
I think they absolutely should, because I think they're elected by the local community, and the community needs to have the voice. And let's be clear about one thing, that our provincial government, at least locally, did not get the majority of votes from the citizens of the Waterloo region. And in fact, the three PC MPPs were under 50% of the votes, whereas these trustees are locally elected, and it's quite it's important that those voices and those perspectives are heard, because at the end of the day, if the school board makes a decision, such as the school resource officer, and there's an election coming up, it will be an election issue. And I would say in 2022, that was an election issue. This region decided that it was something that they would continue to stay the course, and re-elected folks that made that decision. And again, if there was a true, genuine concern, I would hope that the community would say, no, we want to put new people into those positions to make sure that our voices are actually represented.
For better or for worse, we get a sense of where the education ministry is coming from following that very pointed media conference from Minister Calandra last week. From your perch as an education union leader here in the region, Jeff, what would you like to see the education ministry concerned with?
Violence in the classroom. I think it's our number one issue. And again, I think this is a bit of a distraction from the chaos that this government has created. And I think it goes without saying that, or it should go without saying that this announcement came last week. And the week before was when the ministry finally decided to release the education funding formula documents to school boards. It's the latest ever, that at least in the last decade or so that it's been released. And it's created chaos in the system where boards have to make decisions on funding without the information. And so I'm concerned when the Ministry of Education and the government is looking to take things over, but they can't give timely funding announcements in the first place. It makes me wonder how that's going to look once they take things over, if they take things over.
Are we in a difficult position here locally with that funding announcement coming so late?
We're not sure, and that's the big concern is school boards have, and including our school board, has had to staff and make decisions without all of the information. And so at this point, we believe we're in an okay position as far as the number of education workers and the number of educators in the schools. But again, now that they got that announcement 2 weeks ago, they're rushing to kind of get things into place, and they have less than a few weeks to get that done, and in the past it's been a few months. So again, hopefully we're okay, but we just have to wait and find out.
Jeff, I always appreciate the conversations. Thanks for being here.
Anytime, Mike.
Jeff Pellick is the president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario here in the region. He says what he wishes the ministry was interested in was dealing with the violence in the classroom issue. And we touched on that last week. Latest statistics point to a continuation of that trend being increases to violence in the classroom. But Education Minister Paul Calandra made it pretty clear in his media conference last week. We need to get politics out of the classroom. School board trustees should not be concerned with any more renaming of schools. That will all come through the Ministry of Education at the provincial level. Oh, and by the way, school resource officers are going back into the schools where that possibility exists. And I would submit to you, because they used to be in schools here, those resource officers, that possibility exists in the region of Waterloo. How do you feel about this direction? Let's get politics out of the classroom. Let's bring school resource officers back into our school buildings in the region. That's what Minister Calandra is talking about. The leader of one of our education unions here in the region says he wishes he was talking about violence in the classrooms and how to deal with that. Would love your thoughts on where we're at in education as we head into summer break. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
How do we define a matter of public interest? In the bill itself, there are some descriptors, again, very open-ended, and our concern is, where does this lead? And where is that line between what a local trustee has the authority to implement, and when does the government feel as though it needs to step in? And that's where we're concerned.
I think it's an excellent question posed there by Jeff Pellick, who's the president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario here in the region. And I would submit to you, from my perspective, we have had cases where trustees here in Waterloo region are overstepping what should be their boundaries as trustees. I think we have gotten away from the core duties of fiscal responsibility, financial management, and ensuring success in the classroom. And we're getting distracted by all manner of other things based, frankly, on ideology. That's where I'm sitting, though, and that's what I'm seeing in the schools. Always happy to hear your thoughts at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Ranger Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right, too, buddy.
Good.
You know, I agree with what you're saying. And, one little area, though, that I would not want to see change is the naming of the schools, and I'll tell you why. But just like the naming of a lot of the streets, I live here in the south end of Kitchener near where Longos is, and a lot of the streets are named after our pioneers and important people of 100 years ago or more. The Ontario government, if they take that kind of stuff over, could you imagine an elementary school named Doug Ford Elementary School? This is the kind of nonsense that's going to happen, Mikey. Okay.
I don't know that would be the case, Joe. I just think that what the minister is alluding to is if there is a Sir John A. Macdonald school in your city, for example, and the board wants to change it, the ministry might intervene in that.
Oh, okay. But you know what I'm saying, eh? We don't want to have any of their names on any of our schools, okay? I'm just making sure.
All right, so you don't want Doug Ford Elementary anytime soon.
Right. Hey, listen, I want to do one more thing really quick with the London Knights, if I can. I know most of us do not like the London Knights, but I think after they won the Memorial Cup there last night, I think we should all be happy for them, only because they represented the OHL, and we should be cheering for and be happy for the OHL team for winning it for all of us, eh?
All right, Ranger Joe, I appreciate that. It is back-to-back wins for the Ontario Hockey League at the Memorial Cup. Kathy, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Kind of chuckling over that one. Anyhow, with that being said, with the Ford government and the school boards, I currently pay my taxes, and school funding goes to the Thames Valley School Board, which has been under an audit.
Well, and the money they were spending, holy cow.
Incorrectly spending.
Yes, absolutely.
Higher level. Mm-hmm. And now the trouble with the Ford government is facing, this is not the first area that's had these things go on.
That's right. Brantford had it too.
Oh, and PO did. And there's another one somewhere else in this province under the same type of an audit. So there have been 4 school boards under serious stuff in the last couple of years. So if they keep coming to the forefront like this, somebody has to be accountable. And in the case of London, the trustees didn't even know what was going on.
Well, how didn't they know what was going on? They were the ones that went on the retreat to the Skydome Hotel.
No, the ones that did the spending was the superintendent and 18 senior executive members, not the trustees.
I see. And so they weren't, but see, and this comes back to what I was saying before. Yes. One of the core functions should be financial oversight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's more than one thing. And at the bottom end of the scale are the poor kids, the parents, and the teachers. They're the ones that are really paying the price for all of this nonsense. You're absolutely right, Kathy. I would agree with that. And I think parents want to have, certainly feel as though their voices are being heard more clearly at our school board level. And I'm not positive that's the case. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Did you hear the story during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas about the increase in fines for parking tickets in Kitchener? I got a chuckle out of it. I don't know about you. I'll get to that in a moment. But first, an interesting email from Tony to Mike at 570news.com regarding the news from the Education Ministry here in Ontario last week that we're going to get politics out of the classroom. Trustees are going to be focused on things that improve student success, etc. Tony says, let me get this straight. We're going to get politics out of the schools by putting decisions in the hands of politicians? No partisan decisions there, huh? Fair point. But I might also then say elected trustees are also politicians. They are politically elected through a municipal vote. And that makes me think of one of the things that our guest, Jeff Pellick, of the Teachers Union here in the region. Jeff is the president of the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, Waterloo Region. And he pointed out, and fairly enough, that the 3 Conservative MPPs elected in this province in the February election did not get 50% of the vote. Fair enough. But I'll bet you that the entire board of trustees for our school board did not combine for 50% of the vote
when you consider the low municipal turnout. And I mean, how many votes are cast? This is a reminder. This is a reminder. How many votes are cast for school board trustees is what I was getting to. It's a reminder of why it's important for us to be engaged in our municipal politics, particularly. If you want to see a change, you got to get to the ballot box and make that change happen. And I've been clear about this since the beginning of this particular term of particularly our public school board. I think it's a mess. I really do. And I've said from day one, vote the bums out to a person. Move on to a new public school board. But that's just my perspective. I know how I'm going to vote in 2026. The story this morning with Christine and Mark during All News Mornings about a recommendation in the city of Kitchener, which calls for most parking ticket fines to increase by $10 each. And parking in a fire route could go from $75 to $100, all based on the number of complaints for parking violations, which has doubled in the past 7 years. Double the number of complaints. So let me get this straight now. In the city of Kitchener, we are banning the sale of fireworks because of the number of complaints we get about misuse of fireworks. Firework sales are banned starting next year. The number of complaints for parking violations has doubled in the last 7 years. Why don't we just ban parking? No parking for you. You are not. I'm the parking Nazi now, just like the soup Nazi. No parking for you. If we're going to be consistent, we're banning the sale of fireworks. We should just ban parking altogether. No more parking in Kitchener. Problem solved, right? This is how we solve problems now. Speaking of Kitchener, the mayor joins us right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers. Well, as Prime Minister Mark Carney opens meetings with Canada's premiers today, it follows a series of meetings with big city mayors in this country and our Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Emerging from those meetings is a sense of optimism amongst cities. Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic joins the show to talk more about those meetings that he was involved in beginning late last week and continuing over the weekend. Mayor Verbanovic, how would you characterize the meetings that you had over the past several days?
Listen, Mike, I got to say, both myself, the Big City Mayors Caucus, as well as many members, there were over 2,000 people that were at the FCM conference. It was everybody was very encouraged by the messaging coming from the government. Quite frankly, there seems to be a real attitude around, we've got pressing challenges, we've got opportunities, we got to, work together. It's a once in a generational moment, and we're truly stronger together when all three orders of government can work together to get things done.
What messages are you as a municipal leader taking to this federal government and into these meetings?
Listen, there's obviously a number of things that are a priority for us from a local community perspective. Housing continues to be an issue and making it more affordable for people, and so that is one key area. The economy is a second one, and our collective response around tariffs and trade and so on, and how we make sure we keep the economy thriving. And so this notion of one Canadian economy, and we've already been seeing it at play with all of, for example, the agreements between provinces and around removing provincial trade barriers is so important. And also looking at, ongoing stable infrastructure investments are key. And, the Prime Minister's talking about, major projects that are really going to set Canada up for its future, whether we're talking about energy issues, whether we're talking about transportation and so on. These are key. And I have to say, I'm encouraged by, and I'll quote him here, where he said, let's build big, build bold, build now, build together. And that was certainly a message that Ministers LeBlanc, Champagne, and Robertson also brought to the caucus when we met.
You're no stranger to this scene, Mayor Verbanovic, through your work with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in the past, and now, of course, your role as one of our big city mayors. So when you hear language like this, there's been a lot of talk of how ambitious Prime Minister Carney's agenda is. Is an agenda like this and its ambitious nature a departure from what we've seen from leaders in the past?
Listen, I will say that, number one, I was very encouraged by the fact that he continued the tradition of his predecessor in terms of his new government and showing up at FCM. I mean, it is important. I think everyone recognizes the role that cities and communities are playing in the future of building a stronger Canada. And, showing up at his first conference a couple weeks after, being elected and a week after the throne speech and all those kinds of things certainly sent us a strong signal. I will say that I'm seeing a certain business and fiscal reality to the messaging and the approach that the government seems to be taking. It's clear that we have someone who is a professional economist by background, who is in the lead role, and judging by the expectations he's outlined for his cabinet as a whole. He's very goals oriented, both in terms of himself and what cabinet will deliver, and I think he's going to be looking to work with us and try to be more focused on action as opposed to talk, quite frankly, and that is extremely important, particularly in the time that we're finding ourselves in, and so whether it's with the whole notion around the building, what do you call it, Build Canada Homes program that they're talking about, high-speed rail, whether they're talking about making sure municipalities are financially whole in terms of investments in infrastructure, as things like DCs perhaps get adjusted. There seems to be a real focus around, working with others and working together.
You talk about a potential adjustment of DCs or development charges, and there's been a lot of talk from municipalities, ours included, that upper levels of government, we kind of need this new fiscal arrangement. They need to reevaluate, readjust how finances flow to municipalities. What role does the federal government play in this, Mayor Verbanovic, when it comes to money that might be available to cities that wasn't before, or what we as a municipality might have access to from the federal government?
Sure. And Mike, I think that's a really important point because, we've been talking about a national prosperity partnership between all orders of government. And in doing so, the question was asked of him, quite frankly, on Friday. And he did point out that this is an issue that needs to engage the province and territories because that's what our Constitution says. It's work that's not going to happen overnight, but it is work that needs to happen in terms of our long-term relationship and having stability and funding. But he said, in the meantime, and this is important, we will continue to move forward on the important projects, and that is something that I think is a carryover from his predecessor government. That where things weren't moving quickly, like with the Housing Accelerator Fund and so on, they went and worked directly with municipalities, and it sounds like they're certainly interested in doing that in the essence of time. But while he didn't commit to a new deal, he also didn't say that it's not something that the government doesn't want to see move forward, but it will require partnerships with the provinces and territories. And I think, we'll start getting better signals of what that relationship is going to look like after their meetings today in Saskatoon.
It's certainly going to be an interesting summer ahead. Always appreciate your time, Mayor Verbanovic. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Have a great day.
Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic joins us after a weekend full of meetings that included an audience with the Prime Minister, someone that Mayor Verbanovic refers to as an ally to cities. We know a new fiscal arrangement would be welcomed and more money needs to flow from both upper levels of government. We get some sense there of the role that the federal government can play in stimulating economic success and prosperity in our cities. They are the links that bind Canada together, aren't they? Our cities. And if you have weak cities, then you have a weak country overall, I would suggest to you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, speaking of cities, just down Highway 7 in Guelph, where council there is considering the creation of a daytime shelter for the unhoused. But where it ultimately ends up being created is causing a bit of a stir. We'll talk about it on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. One thing we often hear when it comes to providing shelter for our unhoused community is that they can sometimes, and I will emphasize sometimes, find a place to rest their head at night, but sometime around 8 or 9 in the morning, they get shooed out of that shelter space and they're left to fend for themselves for the remainder of the day. And of course, in the harshest winter weather, even a day outdoors is a lot, to say nothing of the nights, because not everybody finds that overnight shelter. But this is an issue that cities the world round are dealing with, including our friends just down Highway 7 in Guelph, where Phil Alt is a Ward 3 councillor and joins us for a conversation. Phil, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. It's a beautiful day, and I'm happy it's not cold.
Oh, you and me both, for sure. Of course, it will be again, and I guess at some point next year, in 2026, the city of Guelph hopes to have a daytime shelter available for the unhoused community. Why is this shelter necessary, Phil?
Well, I think that your introduction summed it up very well. Many of the shelters that people can go to at night actually have people exit around 7 or 8 in the morning, and then they're essentially out in the street during the day. And you and I both know that daytime in the winter and nighttime in the winter can both be equally as cold, and the elements can be equally as dangerous to people. So a daytime shelter makes a lot of sense in a time when we don't seem to be addressing issues like housing as effectively as we should. And just to point it out, that it's not just for the homeless. It's also for those that are either underhoused or living precariously as well.
Understanding absolutely, Phil, the need for this type of shelter in those daytime hours. I guess the question of where it ultimately gets located is still up in the air to some degree. And Guelph Council is working on some sort of points system. Can you explain that points system to us?
Yes. Well, essentially in every request for proposal or RFP, there is a points system. And there are criteria that a municipality will want to have addressed. The Guelph system has included, however, an interesting criteria that identifies the downtown as being an area where there will be points not given if a shelter is in the downtown area. So in some senses, it precludes the possibility of groups working in the downtown right now necessarily being successful in providing a shelter. And if you don't mind me going on, it's problematic because unlike me and likely you, I can rely on my car, my bike, public transit to get to X, Y, and Z. People that are living on the street are incredibly resilient, but also are really literally walking the 15-minute city. They live close to the facilities that provide them support, social services, health care, food banks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To locate a center, a warming center outside of the area where they congregate is actually going to be problematic, and I'm not certain in the end going to be very successful.
What message do you think is being sent, Phil, if the city is not warm, shall we say, to the idea of having such a shelter in the downtown core?
Well, I think it's a confusing message because our council and our community believes in supporting those people who, cliche term, are less fortunate. But in principle, if we are doing that and not doing it in practice, I think people can ask us how serious we really, really are. In my opinion, there are groups in the downtown core, Royal City Mission, the Chalmers Center, the Hope House, that all provide support. And this would actually create a situation where we have an unbalanced point system for the very groups that are addressing poverty and inequity.
Do you think in some ways it's an effort to hide the homelessness problem from downtown shoppers, dwellers, etc.?
That's an interesting way of putting it. I will say that there are many people that are very concerned about individuals who really are alienated from some of the things that we take for granted, housing, a good job, and our downtown really on quite a long-term basis each day. And there are people that do have unease. But, I can give you good examples of why that doesn't make sense. I was with my friend, Councillor Linda Busattil, who was doing taxes in the Royal City Mission for people who were either homeless or really living on the edge. And this is amazing. She did 700 tax returns and was able to generate $2 million worth of income for people that hadn't filed their taxes, in one case as far back as 10 years ago. Those people actually do deliver revenue for the downtown. And one business that has now gone out of business, regrettably, DeBar, said to me that during COVID, it was the homeless and people living on the street that kept him going.
I know the goal is to have the daytime shelter opened sometime in 2026. Where are we at? The meeting was last week. You're moving forward with this point system and trying to get this shelter created and opened. Where are we at in the process? What are next steps?
Next step is for staff to assess and to put out the proposal, the RFP, and then when these come in, to assess which have the greatest strengths. So there will be points awarded for a variety of concerns that we might have, say the opportunity to provide shelter from the cold, maybe facilities like showers and laundry, such as Royal City Mission has, and that will be up to staff. They will then bring a recommendation back to council, and council will either approve the recommendation or will reject it.
Phil, really appreciate the conversation. Thanks for making time for the show today.
Thanks for asking the question. It's a very important one.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Phil Alt is the Ward 3 councillor in the city of Guelph, a daytime shelter for the homeless and those precariously housed. But where it ultimately ends up is a matter of some discussion and concern with this points-based system actually rewarding areas outside the downtown core and away from transit and existing services getting more points, and those points not being offered to those core services that already exist. That's just an example of another city and its efforts in tackling this homelessness crisis. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is a Monday on the program, which allows us the opportunity to catch up from the weekend that was, right? It's been 48 hours since we've been able to have a conversation. I always look forward to coming back and interacting with you on the show. Mondays also mean David Drewe stops by with Drewe's Views. That's about an hour from now. And among other things, David and I will talk about a local MPP who sometimes gives the impression that his heart lies elsewhere. That's about 60 minutes from now. And then on Mondays also at 11, so in about 30 minutes time, This Week in Music History, and you'll be reminded as to why holiday gatherings could be, at least at one point, so interesting for Rolling Stones family members. Those get-togethers and the who's who, if you follow the family tree, gets pretty confusing when you're a rock and roll band like the Rolling Stones. That'll come up on This Week in Music History in about 30 minutes' time. Right now, I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then we've got full bellies and happy hearts, or at least we'd like to create them. How and why is the next story on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers. We have flipped the calendar. Can I still say that? Does anybody flip a calendar anymore? I'm not sure. I've got something in here that's got
we get
paper.
free ones all the time.
There you go. Alan Bush will give me a new free calendar. I can flip it because I'm old like that. But it is June, and on the first Monday of every month, we put the focus on food security and insecurity, as the case may be, in our community. With the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, its CEO, Kim Wilhelm, joins me in studio. Always good to see you, Kim. Good morning.
Good morning.
And that other voice you heard, who's going to give me a calendar, it's on the record now, Alan Bush, who's a senior wealth advisor and leader of the Alan Bush investment team with CIBC Private Wealth Wood Gundy. Great to see you, Alan. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you again, sir.
Kim, I got to start with you, and I got to start before we get into all food bank things and full bellies and happy hearts. And I was in a room at Bingaman's about a week ago, and your picture was up on a screen as a nominee for Women of the Year in the professional category. And lo and behold, you also then came off that screen, walked up on stage, and delivered your acceptance speech. Congratulations on being recognized as a Woman of the Year.
Woohoo!
Thank you. Honestly, though, there are so many incredible women in this community. They had over 140 nominees amongst all of the categories. And so we are just so fortunate in Waterloo Region to have a community of dedicated leaders. But thank you very much, Mike.
Alan, did you genuflect appropriately when you came in today?
Yes.
Yeah, and so did I. I made sure as soon as Kim started walking down the hallway, all rise, then all bow. We got it
the
all
Queen's
sorted.
Here.
Absolutely. Kim, let's talk about making a difference for families and children this summer with the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. Why specifically children and families?
Well, you know that with Alan here, that means that we've officially kicked off our summer campaign, our 7th annual Full Bellies, Happy Hearts campaign. And it really is the most wonderful time of year. It's a fun campaign, except for the fact that it's needed. The reality is that when school's out, our programs that are run in the schools don't operate the same way that they do during the school year. And that means that there's so many people in our community that are wondering where their next meal comes from. And so that's why this year our goal is to raise 1.5 million meals by August 31st to ensure that no child in our community goes hungry. Since we've been running these 6 previous years of Full Bellies, Happy Hearts, the campaign has raised over 8.5 million meals locally. And that's, of course, also thanks to the generosity not only of our community, but to the Alan Bush investment team.
I knew that it was Full Bellies, Happy Hearts campaign time when I picked up my morning paper and I saw the ad right there folded over. How can listeners get involved in the campaign, Kim?
Well, there's a few ways that people can get involved. If you're out at the grocery store and you have extra room in your budget, please consider picking up a kid-friendly snack. Things like applesauce, fruit cups, granola bars. Those are great things that a child can have for a snack throughout the summer months. If you have extra room in your budget and you can make a financial donation, financial donations can be made directly on our website and you'll get an immediate tax receipt. And that donation will help the over 30% of those who are accessing food assistance, which are children right now. Over 30% are children.
Alan, you've been a rock on this campaign. You and I have had the chance to talk before about your continued support for Full Bellies, Happy Hearts. Why is this campaign important to you?
Well, hunger is becoming an increasing problem. Just talking to Kim, we've hit, looks like another month of record high of people needing the food bank. Food insecurity affects all aspects of life, and especially children. Those 34%, that's 25,000 kids in our community that need the food bank. And the other issue is a lot of people don't have the gumption or the insecurity of actually saying, I need help. Mm-hmm. I need food. So there's that mystique over using the food bank. So we want to get out there and say, yes, use the food bank. Yes, our community supports you. And we need more and more people than ever before to support Full Bellies and Happy Hearts. Because when the school shuts down, those lunch programs are gone. And what are they going to do now? So this is why we decided to, at the beginning, support the summer program. And we've got a beautiful logo with a beautiful girl smiling away. She's older now, but she never ages on our ads. And if we can come together as a community and continue to help us support, I'm very excited to increase my matching contributions up to $50,000 this year. And 1 in 8 health. We started this, it was like 1 in 40 households needed the food bank assistance 6 years ago. Now we're down to 1 in 8. So when you go out walking this morning or driving, count in your neighborhood, 1 in 8. So there is the demand there. But we have the best community in southwestern Ontario, if not Canada, for supporting this food bank. The job that Kim has done is amazing. Entrepreneur, Women Leader of the Year. She's amazing. So let's get out here, support her, support the kids that are in need right now.
I think, Alan, because I said at the outset that you and I have had the chance to talk before, I think your matching was $40K.
Yes, last year I've increased it.
Yeah, okay. I love me a good matching donor, because now my $50 becomes $100, up to $50,000.
That's correct.
Yeah. Kim, you probably love you a matching donor too, don't you?
Sure do.
Kim Wilhelm is the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, and Alan Bush is the Senior Wealth Advisor of the Alan Bush Investment Team with CIBC Private Wealth Wood Gundy, a $50,000 matching sponsor for Full Bellies Happy Hearts. We'll give you more information as to how you can support this annual program, now into its 7th year, through the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, as we continue our conversation this morning here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We are in studio this morning with Kim Wilhelm, who's the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, and just so happens to be a KW Oktoberfest Rogers Women of the Year winner in the professional category. Congratulations again to Kim. Alan Bush is in studio with us as well, Senior Wealth Advisor of the Alan Bush Investment Team with CIBC Private Wealth Wood Gundy. Talking about Full Bellies, Happy Hearts, Kim, as we head into the summer, away from school, away from those food programs that might support families. The focus is all on children and families, trying to raise 1.5 million meals by August the 31st. What else can you tell us about this campaign?
Well, we've talked about on the show, Mike, that the need for food assistance is growing, and it's growing fast. And Alan alluded just a couple of minutes ago that, May, we saw 3 weeks that were record-breaking weeks. And unfortunately, if I could just wipe the word record-breaking from my vocabulary, I would do that in a second, because we've seen too much of that over the last number of years. But we've seen not only increase overall, but a 25% increase in the number of people just in the last year. So what this really means that more and more children and families in Waterloo Region are struggling to put food on the table. 34% of the people supported by our network of food assistance providers are children under the age of 18. 25,000 kids. So just imagine 25,000 children in our region who may or may not know where their next meal is going to come from. And this is a chance that the community can really come together and ensure that every child knows where to turn. And we've shown that as a community in times of crisis, we can step up and support people. And this campaign really is a testament of that.
Alan, you're stepping up and supporting again, as we talked about earlier. Your matching contribution this year goes from $40,000 to $50,000. So our $50 donation is $100. Our $100 is $200. Our $250 is $500. I love a matching donor. What are your thoughts as you listen to these numbers that Kim talks about, knowing the season that we're headed into when the kids are away from school, as you think about the impact on this campaign has on our community?
Yeah, so it's saddening to hear those numbers, record-breaking. And 25,000 kids not knowing where the next meal is coming from, that's very sad. You got to give the kids an opportunity to thrive and learn and make a difference. These young kids are going to be our next doctors, our next teachers, our next welders, we need electricians. So it's very important. And I'm honored to work with the food bank over this. It's been successful, but we're going to need your support this year because it's really tough out there. It's like, money's too tight to mention by Slimpy Red.
That's it.
Going into recession again, possibly in Canada. We got the uncertainty of the tariffs. We got 35,000 jobs that could be at stake in southwestern Ontario due to the tariffs in the auto industry. So I can't buy my next house. I can't buy my next meal. What can we do? Let's focus on the kids and make a difference. So I'm doing a challenge out there for everybody in this community. There's a lot of successful people out there, and their businesses are thriving. So let's get out there and support these kids and make a difference. I know you make a big difference in the community with your programs, and this is just one program that we like to support every single year along with all the others that we do. But can you imagine waking up in the morning and not know where your next meal comes from and having that stress in your life? So matching contributions, Full Bellies, and Happy Hearts is amazing. So go to thefoodbank.ca/fullbellies and run a campaign. Mm-hmm. Okay? Go out there, run a campaign to get food. Drop in the grocery store, buy an extra bag, put it into the bin at the food grocery store. Okay? Anything you can do to help. If you don't want to, help with money, help with time. Volunteer at the food bank. Okay? Anything out there is helpful that you can do it. If you're a farmer, donate some food to the food bank. There's lots of ways you contribute without money, okay? Because money's too tight to mention.
I love the reference. I can get behind it for sure. Kim, as we head into these summer months, I mean, not only are we worried or thinking about those kids who might have gaps because they're not in school, but you've got to balance everything at the food bank, too. I'm sure people want some summer breaks and whatnot have you.
It's definitely a challenging time of year because not only when school ends do children have to look differently for their next meal, but people go on vacation and they're maybe not at their regular grocery store. And so the food bank isn't top of mind anymore. Workplaces aren't doing their campaigns in the summer anymore because, well, we want to do it in the fall when people are back from vacation. But the reality is hunger doesn't take a holiday. And it's important that we continue. People still need to get fed. So the Food Bank of Waterloo Region needs to continue to feed them. We were fortunate enough this year to get some summer grants that we can help employ a couple of students that will support us during the summer as staff take their summer vacation, because that food still needs to get out to our community. That is the top priority.
All right. Please remind us that website we can go to support Full Bellies and Happy Hearts.
Thefoodbank.ca/fullbellies.
All right. Thefoodbank.ca/fullbellies. I'm taking my wallet out right now because we're going to take a commercial break and then I'm going to put my donation in, and I'm taking some of Alan's matching donation right here, right now.
Make me poor.
I would love to. Thanks for your generosity, Alan. It's good to see you, and thanks for being here this morning.
Pleasure.
And Kim, it's always great to see you. Keep up the great work at the Food Bank.
Thanks, Mike.
Kim Wilhelm is the CEO at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. And Alan Bush with us as well, Senior Wealth Advisor and leader of the Alan Bush Investment Team with CIBC Private Wealth, Wood Gundy. Full Bellies, Happy Hearts, thefoodbank.ca/fullbellies. Let's get those 1.5 million meals by the end of August. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I know why you listen to this show. I know because you tell me. Every time we get to have a conversation away from this studio and this show, you're always telling me, Farwell, I love listening to the show because I find out the things that are happening in our community. You want to know.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
And so you can know what's going on. We're joined by Megan Hooper, who's the Recreation Coordinator of Special Events with the City of Cambridge, and Les Kadar, Volunteer Chair of the Cambridge Celebration of the Arts. Les, what can we expect at the Celebration of the Arts in Cambridge when it arrives on June the 13th?
We have a wonderful show again coming up, as usual. We have 10 live musical acts on 2 different stages. We have 32 visual artists and 20 student artists who will be displaying their work. We have 8 or possibly more by then food vendors. And hopefully the weather permitting, we're going to have about 8,000 people turn out.
This has been going on, Les, for more than 20 years. Why is it important to celebrate the arts in Cambridge? How did this all get started?
Well, it got started by the mayor of the day, and thinking that, the public need a venue in which to display their talents and ply their wares and all that. And it should be free, which it is free, so that we can take advantage of the incredible square that this City Hall has in front of it. It's very difficult typically for people to be able to get together like this, and especially for no charge, right?
How can people support the work that you do with the Cambridge Celebration of the Arts?
We're really pleased and thankful to have great sponsors continue to support our event. Without those sponsors, the event cannot be as a success that it is. We have continued sponsors, major sponsors like Toyota Motor Manufacturing Canada, as well as TD Bank. Those are our major sponsors. We also say thanks to Ricolta Jensen Accounting and Diva Petroleum, some local businesses who have really stepped up and support our artists for this event. Those artists, and we're partnering with Farwell Brewing this year, actually. So they're supporting us as our alcohol beer vendor at the occasion. It is a licensed event. And folks can get involved by reaching out to us at the city. They can email cca@cambridge.ca for details on that.
cca@cambridge.ca, CCA for Cambridge Celebration of the Arts. Les, what kinds of performances and visual artists can we expect to see this year?
We've got everything from rock to blues, and the artists are top shelf artists, paintings.
We'll have a few sculptures, watercolor pieces, as well as stained glass pieces.
We know the square will be alive with all things arts and performance on June the 13th from 5 until 10 p.m.
Absolutely.
Les, Megan, thank you very much for joining us today.
You're very welcome, and thank you for allowing us this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mike. We look forward to seeing everybody there on Friday, June 13th.
Les Kadar is the volunteer chair of the Cambridge Celebration of the Arts. Megan Hooper, recreation coordinator of special events, the City of Cambridge, the 13th of June. Next Friday, Friday the 13th, my motorcycle riding friends will love a chance to get down to Port Dover. But don't worry, you can get the Cambridge Celebration of the Arts into the late afternoon and evening right on Dixon Street in the square outside Cambridge City Hall. Always letting you know what's going on here on the program. Time to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then it's Monday. That means a look back at This Week in Music History is coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers. The title track from one of the biggest albums of all time. Just how big was it? Now, we'll get into that as we launch This Week in Music History for Monday, the 2nd of June. Our friend and musicologist Brian Allison joins us every week at this time for This Week in Music History, and I encourage you to check out the Facebook page by the same name, This Week in Music History, to get the tidbits we talk about and even more. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
I want to go in the Wayback Machine to start, if we can. Let's go all the way back to This Week in 1962, because I just love how these four guys were kind of thrown together, put into a recording studio, and let's see what you guys can do together.
Yeah, and what they did turned out to be not so bad. So June 6, 1962, this was when the very first Beatle recording session took place at Abbey Road Studios. So what had happened was the Beatles had bounced around a little bit. They were considered by a few other record companies in the UK at the time, and they one record executive told them specifically, guitar groups are on their way out. So you guys should maybe find something else to do, which I find quite humorous.
Yeah, I think it worked out okay.
But they connected the Beatles with a fellow named George Martin, who was known to kind of take on sort of more madcap ideas. He had done a lot of comedy records. He had worked with the Goons, who were a comedy troupe in the UK at the time. And they said, let's put crazy George Martin with these Beatle kids and see what happens. So they went into the studio and they recorded 4 tracks. And George Martin was quite impressed. He said, these are very, very professional young men. They're good musicians. They do great harmonies together. One of the tracks that they worked on that very first recording session was Love Me Do. And they ended up releasing it as a single. And, of course, it became a major hit in England. It took them a little longer to get some traction in the United States of America and across the ocean. But, it was the start this week in music history of the Beatles' first recording sessions, for which they were paid an amazing sum of $12.07 each.
And the royalties from the songs have since made up for that in spades.
I think like I started off the conversation, I think the Beatles ended up doing okay for themselves.
Absolutely. So that's this week in 1962, but we go back even earlier than that to 1956, and you have to try to put yourself in the sensibilities of folks almost 70 years ago, when Elvis Presley shocked. I could hear the gasps of housewives from here. Television audiences back in 56.
Yeah, this was almost scandalous in 1956. So Elvis was up and coming. He started off as kind of more of a country artist, but it sort of made this gradual transition into rockabilly and rock and roll. And he was becoming a sensation on the touring circuit. People were starting to know his name. And of course, there was television back then, and television would have been the first that a country would be able to actually see who is this Elvis Presley kid. So he appeared on the Milton Berle Show, which was a nationally syndicated variety show, weekly variety show. And he was going to do a version of his song Hound Dog, which was one of his first hits and one of his first releases. And it kind of didn't go the way they thought it was going to do. They thought they were going to get this, very well-mannered young man come out and perform, and it would be a big hit, which it was. If you were a kid, if you were a grown-up, you were aghast, because this is Elvis coming out and, grinding his hips, doing a very slow, accentuated version of Hound Dog where he ground his hips and made some what they called obscene gestures. They called him lewd and suggestive. And the phone lines for the television stations across the nation lit up with people saying, "That's disgusting. You can't go on national television and move your hips like that. That's lewd and disgusting." So this was it. This is where Elvis the Pelvis kind of was born on the Milton Berle Show some 70 years ago almost.
Absolutely. Yep.
Some people, maybe myself included, I could certainly be convinced, this was the moment when, quote unquote, rock and roll was born. This is when teenagers specifically separated their musical choices from that of their parents. They were no longer interested in listening to what their mom and dad wanted to listen to. They had Elvis, they had rock and roll, they had rebellion, they had something that nobody else knew about. So to me, rock and roll as a genre really starts with Elvis's appearance on the Milton Berle Show.
You know what? It's a great point, Brian. A great point. So I started the segment today with Born in the USA. Obviously, Springsteen. We know it was a big album, but just how big was it, Brian?
It was a monster. It was huge, and Bruce Springsteen, of course, was already a fairly well-established rock act, critical darling. People loved him. He drew lots of fans on his tours, and his albums were selling well. But Born in the USA just put Bruce into another stratosphere. One of the best-selling albums of all time, and it was definitely a move to a more radio-friendly. The songs were definitely more radio-friendly. You've got Dancing in the Dark, which became a massive hit. You've got I'm on Fire. You've got the title track. So Born in the USA would go on to tie Thriller for the most top 10 hits on a single album, 7 top 10 hits from one record, which was a pretty amazing thing in 1984. I mean, I think when Thriller came out, people were like, well, nobody's ever going to make an album with that many top 10 hits. I mean, it just can't happen. And, barely a year and a half, 2 years later, Bruce did it. So it's consistently ranked as one of the greatest albums of all time. It has had massive commercial success with more than 30 million copies of that one LP sold worldwide. So Born in the USA, great record, great artist, and, what a time to be alive.
There's a reason he's the boss. Brian Allison joins us every Monday morning at 11 o'clock for This Week in Music History. Do not forget to check out the Facebook page. Follow it along. The same name, This Week in Music History. And you'll find out just after this timeout how far someone had to go to record two itty-bitty words for a song. And what must it have been like at a Rolling Stones member's family dinner? We'll talk about that with Brian Allison. This Week in Music History continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Monday morning, we take a trip down a musical memory lane with This Week in Music History. Our friend and musicologist Brian Allison joins us for the weekly segment. And don't forget, you can find the full list of weekly stories simply by following Brian's Facebook page. Just search This Week in Music History and you'll find it. Brian, I'm trying to wrap my head around how far Ray Davies had to go just to make good on the recording of Lola.
Well, the answer is 6,000 miles specifically. That's how far he had to go. So, it was this week, 1970, that the Kinks had recorded previously to this the song Lola, which, was a soon-to-be hit. Lola kind of became the Kinks' signature song for a lot of people. When they recorded it initially, it was sung with a different lyric. The lyric that says, Cherry Cola now was originally Coca-Cola. So the key, of course, to getting radio play in the 60s and early 70s and getting a hit song was, if you were in England, was BBC Radio. BBC Radio had to approve any recording that went on. And when they heard Lola, they said, we can't play this on the radio because you've set a brand name. And we have a specific policy that says that you cannot place a brand name into a song that's on the radio. So how are we going to get around this? The Kinks at the time that this happened are in the U.S. on a tour. So lead singer and songwriter Ray Davies gets a call from management and says, you need to fly back to the U.K. because we have to record 2 words in the song Lola. We have to get you not to say Cherry Cola and get you to say Coca-Cola. And that's exactly what he did. He flew from New York to London, went to the recording studio, sat down and said, they overdubbed Coca-Cola over top of Cherry Cola, and he got back on the plane and flew back to New York. So around 6,000 miles and roughly $33,000 today. It cost the band about $4,000 then to re-record the 10-letter 2-word phrase in Lola, which stands to this day.
Who knew? And just think now of how much product placement exists in movies, TVs, named, things named in songs, but back then, a completely different world in 1970.
The BBC were absolutely staunch about that rule. Like, there was no way you could place a product name into a song lyric. So, even today when I hear Lola and it gets to the line with Cherry Cola, I always picture Ray Davies sitting on an airplane flying back to the UK to re-record that line.
And today he could have just, recorded it somewhere else and sent the MP3, but that's a whole other story.
He probably could have recorded into his phone today and they overdubbed it into the song, but this is 1970, so you had to do the footwork.
Exactly. Okay. You always, Brian, send me meticulous notes for this weekly look back in music history, which I love. And I'm still doing my best to wrap my head around the family tree that at one time existed in and amongst the Rolling Stones, particularly member Bill Wyman's family. Can you do your best? And we're gonna listen very carefully to try to understand all of this here.
You might need to draw yourself a diagram, maybe a family tree.
Okay.
I'm the same way. I have trouble getting my head around this and understanding the concept that this became. But it's as simple as this. So 1989, June 2nd, today, Bill Wyman, who was 52 years old at the time, bass player for the Rolling Stones, secretly married 18-year-old Mandy Smith. Mandy was his girlfriend. They had been, and even Bill marrying an 18-year-old at 52 in 1989 was a little bit scandalous. People were kind of, there was some raised eyebrows. Then it came to light that they had been in a relationship since she was actually 14 years old. So then people's eyebrows really went up. But she's an adult now. They're married. She's married to a Stone. Very cool. Wyman's 28-year-old son, Stephen, was the best man at his wedding to Mandy. The marriage lasted for 17 months. They split up, and that was it. Fast forward another 4 years, 1993, Wyman's son, Stephen, who was the best man at his wedding to Mandy, married Patsy Smith, who is the 46-year-old mother of Mandy Smith. So when you look at this in a family tree perspective, with that union of Bill Wyman's son marrying his ex's mother, stay with me here.
I'm trying.
He became his own son's ex-son-in-law. He became the father-in-law of his ex-mother-in-law, as well as the step-grandparent of his ex-wife. Get your head around that.
No, I can't. It blows. But this is what happens when you're 52 and you marry an 18-year-old.
And then your son marries her mother. Yeah. At the time, I remember when this was happening, people were just sort of scratching their heads, saying, "Wow, this is pretty wild."
Only in rock and roll, only the Rolling Stones, I think.
Yeah, the most dangerous band in the world for a reason.
Absolutely true. Brian, it's always fun. Thanks again for making time for us.
Always. And can I say one last thing, Mike?
Certainly.
I know I said you to this in person, but I just, again, all the compliments in the world for a great job on the Farwell for Hire campaign. What a great success. What a great tribute. And to people living with cystic fibrosis. You've done them such a great service. So congratulations on that. Totally awesome.
I really appreciate you, and thanks for all the support, Brian. We'll look forward to next week.
I'll talk to you next week.
You betcha. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Brian Allison, our musicologist, joins us every Monday morning at 11 for This Week in Music History. Don't forget, you can get the full list of weekly stories simply by following Brian's Facebook page of the same name. Just search This Week in Music History. You'll get all that we've talked about and even more. Some Simon and Garfunkel we didn't get to. Another Rolling Stones story when they were booed off a stage and the Monkees, not the band, but the actual performing Monkees, came back on to do a second performance because the Stones were so bad. Just find This Week in Music History on Facebook. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is Monday, and I don't mean to remind you of, the Mondays. Does somebody have a case of the Mondays? It's a nice, bright, sunny day. But sometimes on Monday, after a particularly enthusiastic weekend, we might come to work the way I would call it, playing guilty. Like, you're going to show up, but you might not be at your best because, you made a little too merry over the weekend or some such thing. I don't often share things on the show that I see online, but this one really struck a chord with me. Maybe it's because I'm such a proud Gen Xer, but I hope you enjoy this as much as I did, especially if you're playing a little guilty today.
Yo, if you drink all night and then go to work the next morning like nothing happened, you're just built different, bro.
It's about time someone said it. Gen X did not grow up with a whole sensitive feeling switch. Gen X and maybe some Xennials, we weren't basement dwellers. Once you hit a certain age, you moved out because living with your parents wasn't cool, and frankly, we didn't want to. The only grown man we knew still living at home was Norman Bates, and I'm pretty sure we all know how that ended. But calling in because you're hungover, that wasn't a thing. You looked like hell, smelled like hell, felt like hell, and maybe even threw up in the parking lot a few times, but you clocked in. Why? Because bills don't care how much you drank. Back then, we drank in fields out of plastic jugs filled with some mystery booze, and we all chipped in for it. No internet or smartphone, just a boombox, music, bad choices, and good stories that most of us don't remember. We didn't do it for the social media fame. We did it because there was nothing else to do. And yeah, we built the tolerance not to impress anyone, but because missing work meant no paycheck and moving back home wasn't an option. So the next time you call out over a few White Claws, just remember the manager that you're whining to probably played quarters with Wild Turkey and still roofed a house or, built a house the next morning. We are built different. Not better, but definitely tougher.
Yeah, see, we're not better. We're just tougher. And my favorite line from that is, bills don't care how much you drank. If you want to pay the bills, you get up and you answer the bell. Man at night, man in the morning was a phrase that was popular in my day. Maybe less popular today, but Gen Xers might get some enjoyment out of that. I know I did. An update from the 570 News Center coming up, and then David Drewe will be in studio for Drewe's Views this Monday morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? I haven't seen hide nor shaggy head of that boy in 4 years. But you'd know him if you met him. Played harmonica like the cat lost his balls. Yep, Crazy Dave. Had a toothy smile as big as my hand. Always chewed on a toothpick or a long blade of grass, drank from the bottle, rolled the worst cigarettes, was impervious to insect bites. It's one of the best damn tree-planting highballers east of Prince George.
The best thing about our David Drewe, is you don't have to wait 4 years to find him. He pops up here every Monday morning at 11:30 with Drewe's Views. David Drewe owns Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You seem to be concerned with perhaps a local MPP's heart, which might lie elsewhere. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is petty of me because, I totally understand the sentiment of where he was coming from. I'm a Northern Ontario boy myself. You've heard me brag about it when I've broadcasted from there. I always show you the views I have. I'm a big ambassador for the North. I love it. I always tell you should retire there. I'll get your waterfront.
Yes.
But when our local MPP for Kitchener-Conestoga says Northern Ontario will always be top of mind for me in a tweet, it just makes me go, no, but you represent us. We should be top of mind for you. And I'm not in Kitchener-Conestoga, it's not that I even think he's doing a bad job for us, but I just see that phrasing. And your constituents, the people who elect you, the people you are privileged to serve, should always be top of mind for you, not these emotional roots that he and I share with Northern Ontario. So I don't want to go too hard on this because it's not disqualifying. It's just, it burr under my saddle.
Well, and for somebody in your line of work, I can understand why it would be, because perhaps whomever is responsible for tweeting on behalf of the MPP for Kitchener-Conestoga should work on different language. Instead of will always be top of mind, Northern Ontario will always hold a special place in my heart.
Well, and honestly, I do think that this was probably Mike Harris on his own doing it. It just seems like something that was very natural. And like I said, I don't want to spend too much time criticism on this because if I wasn't paying attention, I could tweet the same thing and I would be getting crap from all my friends for saying it. So, just don't do that anymore, please.
That's fine.
That's
and
all.
You know what? Burrs under one's saddle. This is the place to release them. That's what we're here for. Reminder, rant or rave, if you've got a burr under your saddle, comes up at noon today. All right, let's talk about that throne speech, David, and the king who delivered it and all of the commentary since King Charles himself delivered our throne speech.
Well, I actually started wondering about this before the actual delivery of the speech. It was when we first found out that the king was coming. And everybody started explaining, well, Donald Trump really loves the royalty. So this is really going to get through to him. But it was coming from some version of that was coming from every pundit. And, the embassy in Ottawa, they've got media analysts and they're paying attention to this stuff. And so all it takes is, that one sentence getting through to Donald Trump a couple times. This is being done to puff you up. And is it still going to work? Does a secret strategy like that work when the person you're trying to influence is fully aware that you are trying to influence them? So I'm not sure how much impact this had on Trump. Now, we got global press for it, which is kind of amazing and nothing to sneeze at on its own. But just in terms of the Donald Trump thing, I'm wondering, really? But I think we have all very much low-bridged the most important thing about the throne speech. And that was not that King Charles accepted Mark Carney's invitation to deliver it, but King Charles interrupted cancer treatments to fly across the ocean to deliver this speech. That's why his speech was so short. We were talking about that, or his visit was so short. We were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, but the dude's going through cancer treatments. And he still made it a priority to fly across the Atlantic and do this for us. So, I'm a monarchist by necessity and pragmatism, not by romance or affiliation. I'm, what are we going to replace it with kind of monarchist. But the idea that this guy came across under these health conditions to make this speech for us, that kind of touches you a little bit right there. That's above and beyond the call of duty, shall we say. And it's a really good first impression for him to leave on Canadians. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit wistful.
You are. I was just like, is this... Hello, who stepped into the studio in David Drewe's place today, you monarchist, you?
Well, no, but we all know people who've been going through cancer treatments, and the idea that they're going to be getting on a plane and getting off somewhere else and in front of a whole pile of strangers, and wow. And he did that for us. So, all this talk about, Donald Trump should be influenced by this, that, or the other thing. No, the King of England came to Canada to proclaim our sovereignty rather than go through chemo. Take that, Trump.
And he took the time to drop the ceremonial face-off at a ball hockey game. Come on.
That's so Canadian, though.
It is Canadian.
Like, if it was a different time of year, he could have tapped a maple syrup tree.
In this case, it was a ball hockey game. Heck, they probably still could have been playing hockey on the Rideau this weekend. It was so ding-dang cold. David Drewe is the owner of Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. He joins us every Monday morning, 11:30, to share Drewe's views with us. Score a huge one for the good guys, says David. Who are the good guys? And is Mark Carney, the new Prime Minister, still a good guy in David Drewe's books? We'll find out as we continue Drewe's views this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Monday mornings at 11:30, our good friend David Drewe joins us in studio for Drewe's Views. David owns Negotiating Change, Government Relations, and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. He's also a former Conservative Party staffer, has a pretty unique perspective on things. Let's talk about the war between Russia and Ukraine, David, and something that you noticed Ukraine was able to accomplish that, I mean, if you looked at it on, if your field general came to you and said, okay, I've got this idea. You see, here's what we're going to do to take out a big part of Russia's capabilities, I don't think you would have believed it would work.
It's one of those so simple, how can you believe it? And it's no, Ukraine has been making amazing use of drones and drone in all sorts of ways. Every little drone they can get their hands on. So what they did over the weekend was some experts saying it could be as much as half of the Russian strategic bomber capability was taken out by the Ukrainians. They hit bases in Siberia and northern Russia, which, if you're looking at a map, are well out of the range of drones. So what Ukraine did was put the drones onto trucks and drive them into range of these highly secured military bases. But from inside that bubble, it seems like they were able to take out almost half of the Russian strategic bomber forces. Those are the ones that Russia would also be launching against us. You know, these are the strategic ones. These are not the little fighter jets. These are the ones that can go incredibly long distance, carrying incredibly heavy payloads of missiles and bombs. And 1/3 of their nuclear deterrent force is now at less than half capacity, perhaps.
So we should send Volodymyr Zelensky a thank you card.
Or maybe some more drones and some aid, a made in Ontario pickup truck or two. Yes. But that's just it. It's not just the thank you card. Trump has been bad-mouthing the Ukrainian efforts and chances since he got elected. And the fact that the Ukrainians just did this kind of makes it a little bit hard for that argument to have any traction at all. It's like they managed to do something that we would have always have loved to have the capability to do, but we weren't sure we could do it without nuking the world. They did it with a pickup truck and a few drones. It's really hard to say that these guys don't have a shot, that they're not competitive, that they're unworthy of aid. I mean, you think about how much one of those strategic bombers costs, and then you figure out how much a couple drones and a pickup truck costs. Ukraine doesn't need a lot of money. They just need support that they can turn into victories like this.
You have to think, though, that as big a victory as this is for Ukraine, and full marks for the ingenuity behind it, but this probably makes Vladimir Putin and Russia a very, very angry bear.
Yes, and you got to be wondering how they're going to react, because you got to remember Russia does not follow the same rules of warfare as we do. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it like that. When they break the rules, no one cares. When we break the rules, we tend to care. And there tends to be some hand-wringing at the very least about it, whereas there it's a celebration. That's the difference. But they'll take out dams, they'll take out power systems, they will bomb civilians, but this is not... Pardon me, those are all the things they've already done in the war. And now Ukraine has really humiliated them on the world stage. So what is the next step in terms of gross and indiscriminate warfare? I am a little bit worried, that we've poked the bear a little bit, and they may come out with claws and fangs.
Okay, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a couple, might have been a few, could have been last week, time blurs for me. Point is this. You said, early days, granted, but so far you think that Mark Carney is the kind of prime minister that you can like. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling very good about him again, still. But it's these I was thinking about it, though. It's like, how could I not? He has raised expectations, not just about what's going to get done, but the timelines he's setting are very aggressive. And, he's already backing down. We're not going to have open interprovincial free trade on July 1st. We're going to have legislation removing some of the better federal barriers there, too. Okay. But all this talk about these nation-building projects and getting the corridor done, these are all promises that Stephen Harper made in some form or another, that Justin Trudeau made in some form or another. And Mark Carney's not only promising them, but he's promising them with a time frame. And that's just... I am very worried that he's not going to be able to meet the expectations that he set for himself so unreasonably. I don't think anybody needed him to be saying, and I'm going to be accomplishing X by Y, because we already had him as the dude with the plan. But, Stephen Harper got forgiveness from his base because everybody believed. He believed in what he was trying to do. Justin Trudeau got the fanfare from his base because it was genuine love and affection. Mark Carney is where he is because of perceived competence. And he has raised the bar so high on what he's going to get done that if it looks like he's not competent or his government is not meeting the targets that he has set, what's the fallback on why we love him? Because he's the deliverer. He's the guy who's going to get it done. And he hasn't got it done yet. He's promising a great game, and I wish him all the luck in the world. I really, really do. He's promising to do the things that I've been saying we should be doing as Canadians for a long time.
This is where I worry a little bit, because I, too, am impressed with the ambition. I think the ideas are ideas that I can get behind, absolutely. But these timelines, as aggressive as they are, Mark Carney is not new enough to be this gullible, if you will, in thinking that government can move this quickly. While he wasn't in government, he was at minimum government adjacent.
Well, he was before he was
not elected. Sorry,
yeah,
not elected.
But yeah, he was not just though at the Bank of Canada. Before that, he was associate deputy minister at the very least at the Department of Finance.
Right.
So
he understands.
He should understand how slow it is.
Exactly.
He should.
And so this is where I worry, David, that because he should fully understand how slow it is, and yet he's on the high-speed rail that I would like to see as one of these nation-building projects.
Yeah, well, like, you'd think even if he didn't get it, somebody like Dominic LeBlanc would have been saying, yeah, but you know what? We can't do it that fast. We can't. Like, I just keep looking at this energy corridor that, you know, is a commitment that is going to happen, but we don't know if Quebec will want to participate because of pipelines. And we are not going to veto Indigenous objections. So I don't see the timelines. I could see us getting to yes in a long, convoluted process. But to get all of these stakeholders agreeing on a coast-to-coast corridor for energy, and I think we also got to look at beyond energy projects. It could go, you know, a highway underneath. It could, you know, fiber optic trunks. There's a whole lot of things like where once you are saying this area, you know, I don't want to say paving the animals, but once you've done everything for that energy corridor, there's a whole lot of other things you can do with that corridor because you're not going to be tearing anything up that hasn't already been torn up.
You realize, of course, as do I, this is still the honeymoon period. And I think the question really becomes, how long does the honeymoon last?
That's just it.
July 2nd?
Oh, no, he's going to have the summer, I'm sure. And, like, let's be honest, the NDP are not poking for a fight with anybody. The Bloc's not poking for a fight with anybody. Until Pierre Poilievre gets a seat, and have you noticed the change of tone from him? He's all jolly now. Oh my gosh, get grouchy for me again. At least I understood that.
Get a guy out of Ottawa and he gets happy.
There's something to that. Although Ottawa is kind of the happiest place on earth because it's like the city has no business having all the amenities and beauty that it does. So thank you to everybody in the rest of Canada who funds it. So like that's just Ottawa is a gorgeous, clean city. And it's got the Tulip Festival and all these things that it has no business doing, but it's the nation's capital. Excuse me.
It is the nation's capital. And yes, it can send us a card. As we send one to Volodymyr Zelensky, we can also send one. The rest of Canada can send one, or Ottawa can send one to the rest of Canada for their beauty that we've helped fund.
And tomorrow maybe we could get Glenn at Ethel's to send Trump some tacos.
Trump always chickens out. That would be excellent. Taco Tuesday from Ethel's right to the Oval Office. Always fun, David. Thanks for being here.
That Ethel's reference was for Dave Marskell.
David and I affectionately refer to the bar stools that we often meet at as our pews in church. The bar stools at Ethel's.
I could buy into that.
Yeah, I knew you could. David Drewe owns Negotiating Change, Government Relations, and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. He joins us every Monday morning, 11:30 for Drew's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I got an email from Tim to Mike at 570news.com. What was that Gen X thing you played? I only caught half of it. Tell you what, Tim, I'll play it again in the next hour because our Talkback Hour, and on Mondays, that means it's our Rant or Rave Hour, begins after your noon update from the 570 News Center. So that Gen X thing I played, I will play again in the next 60 minutes. Also for Patty, who called much earlier today because she missed the name of the restaurant where we're having celebratory drinks later this week to mark the end of our Farwell for Hire fundraising month. It's not a restaurant. It's an outdoor beer garden, and you're welcome to stop by. There's going to be a food truck. There's going to be cold beer. There's going to be camaraderie, and it's all going to happen at the Research and Tech Park on Hagee Boulevard near the University of Waterloo, just north of the University of Waterloo. So come on out and join us there on Thursday afternoon starting at 2 as we, tip our elbows in celebration of what was a very busy fundraising month. And we've still got a little bit more to go and some loose ends to tie up before we get to announcing a final total fundraising number for this year's campaign. But we know it's going to be a whopper, thanks in large part to that 50-50 raffle where we gave away more than $121,000 on Friday. And that means more than $121,000 goes to cystic fibrosis. Anyway, Tim didn't hear the whole Gen X thing. Patty missed the name of the Research and Tech Park where we're having a beer garden on Thursday afternoon. It's just a reminder that you got to listen to every second of this show. And we've got 60 minutes of Talkback. Rant or Rave is coming up next on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
On Mondays, in keeping with tradition on this show, your Talkback Hour is your hour to rant and or rave. Rant because you're upset about something. Rave because you're happy. I mean, come on. We have to be so grateful and happy for days like today because they have been few and far between. It is my contention that the first 5 months of 2025 have been the suckiest 5 weather months to start any year in the history of civilization. You cannot convince me otherwise. If you've got statistics that you think can convince me otherwise, I would love to hear them. But you think back. I remember being in North Bay on New Year's Eve because I was up there with the Kitchener Rangers, and there was not a snowflake to be seen. It was about 7 degrees and raining on December the 31st, 2024. We all know what happened for the rest of the winter. It wasn't snowing on New Year's Eve in North Bay. It wasn't snowing here either. But we got absolutely pounded by snow through January, February, and March. And now here we are on June the 2nd. And have we strung together 3 consecutive sunny, mild days? Have we had a single day yet this year where we could be carefree with our friends on the back deck or a patio enjoying a bevy at 10 o'clock at night? No, we have not. I maintain that these first 5 months of 2025 have been the suckiest 5 weather months to start any year in history. I look forward to investigating that further. That's just the sense from where I'm sitting, but it's been way too cold and way too rainy for my motorcycle riding liking. That's just a minor rant from yours truly as we start things off. Lots of things to talk about today, including that meeting with first ministers. And I wonder for you what you might think a nation-building project looks like. Are you ready for pipelines, this making Canada this energy superpower that so many say it could become? What do you want to see come? What kind of nation-building projects could you see yourself getting behind? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Apparently, Ontario Premier Doug Ford went into the meeting with the Prime Minister and his fellow First Ministers today singing Love is in the Air. Because that, in a nutshell, is Doug Ford, isn't it? We, of course, talked on the show earlier today already about the education ministry here in Ontario and how it's taking aim at school boards and essentially warning those boards, you better keep your books in order. And oh yeah, by the way, keep your nose out of things like renaming schools and school resource officers, because school resource officers are coming back, says the Ministry of Education, and school boards should be concerned with things other than renaming schools. That's all going to come from the provincial ministry from now on. And I can't help but wonder, if any trustees elected here in the region, particularly with our public school board, are feeling a little bit of pressure right now. I don't know. But the Education Ministry and Education Minister Paul Calandra was pretty pointed in his media conference last week. And Tim sent an email not long before our news update at 12 with Matt Hutchison, wondering about what was that Gen X thing you played? I only caught half of it. Tim, for you and maybe for others to comment on during this 60 minutes of rant or rave, you might want to talk about those darn millennials.
Yo, if you drink all night and then go to work the next morning like nothing happened, you're just built different, bro.
It's about time someone said it. Gen X did not grow up with a whole sensitive feelings switch. Gen X and maybe some Xennials, we weren't basement dwellers. Once you hit a certain age, you moved out because living with your parents wasn't cool, and frankly, we didn't want to. The only grown man we knew still living at home was Norman Bates, and I'm pretty sure we all know how that ended. But calling in because you're hungover, that wasn't a thing. You looked like hell, smelled like hell, felt like hell, and maybe even threw up in the parking lot a few times, but you clocked in. Why? Because bills don't care how much you drank. Back then, we drank in fields out of plastic jugs filled with some mystery booze, and we all chipped in for it. No internet or smartphone, just a boombox, music, bad choices, and good stories that most of us don't remember. We didn't do it for the social media fame. We did it because there was nothing else to do. And yeah, we built the tolerance not to impress anyone, but because missing work meant no paycheck and moving back home wasn't an option. So the next time you call out over a few White Claws, just remember the manager that you're whining to probably played quarters with Wild Turkey and still roofed a house or, built a house the next morning. We are built different. Not better, but definitely tougher.
Definitely tougher. Bills don't care how much you drank. You darn millennials. Let's get things started this afternoon with Tom. Good afternoon, Tom. Rant or rave?
Well, it's maybe a rant, but my concern is with the fires, and they're not getting any better, and this is one of the number one concerns for Canada. Like, forget the Russians, forget these guys. They're not going to come. Nobody's coming.
Okay, so don't worry about a military invasion. Worry about the forest fires.
If it comes to that, it's too late anyway. We're going to be getting blown by the rockets. So who's going to invade? And, going into the space war, nobody's going to build it. The Russians have already missiles that travel faster than you can catch them. So I don't know. I just hope we don't get there. And we should try to be what we used to be, peacekeepers, and, try to make peace all over.
All right, Tom. Make love, not war. And hey, if you want to take out those missiles that Russia might use against you, just put some drones in the back of pickup trucks like the Ukrainians did, and everything will be great. But Tom says, don't worry about an invasion militarily. Worry about the wildfires. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, the Talkback Hour is for your rants or raves. Grant, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Boo, London. I guess Medicine Hat didn't want it.
Oh, I think Medicine Hat wanted it. I saw those players' faces after they lost.
Then they should have nailed these players, let them know they're there, not just let them skate around like our Rangers in the first game.
Oh, settle down, Grant. Yeah. You make the game sound so easy. You make the game sound as though London was not the dominant team in the entire Canadian Hockey League this year. Come on.
If you really wanted it, you could beat them.
That's okay. That's all you needed. You just really had to want to beat them, and you could have beat them, right?
And
is that really what you believe?
Yeah, and you say allow them to play like crummy.
What are you talking about? You said the coach. Who are you talking about? The Toronto Maple Leafs?
The first two games, he did nothing to tell them. And if I'm
did nothing to who?
If I'm UC's boss, I'm going to have a chat with them and say, no, you either pick up your socks or you don't get paid.
Okay, you know what? If I got to have a chat with UC Ahokas, the head coach of the Kitchener Rangers, I would ask him how big a raise he wants. That's the first question I would ask him. Sean, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Did you get my email? Did you get my email?
No, it went to my spam. Don't try to convince me anything other than what I believe, okay? I'm sticking to my guns. Volcanic winter, who cares?
Oh, volcanic winter, 536, almost like that's the whole human race.
All right, fine. So this is the worst 5 months to start a year in 1,500 years. Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway.
I hate it. Don't let my rants don't let facts get in the way of my rants, Sean. Stop it.
Anyway, I just want to talk about Taco Man. We need to do something about Taco Man. Have you ever heard of the concept of Kanzuk?
Who? What now?
Kanzuk. Canzuk. Kanzuk. It's proposed alliance.
I know I can suck. Like, I'm pretty bad most days, if that's what you mean.
Well, it's a proposed alliance of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK.
Oh, okay.
It's a confederation, similar to the EU. It's sort of a resurgence of the old empire, where we sort of all accept it's an equal thing. It would be like an English language counterbalance to the nutcases south of the border. I think that'd be a good idea.
All right. I'm with you, Sean. Let's go Kanzuk, and then maybe this year of weather Kanzuk less. I'm with you all the way. Kyle, good afternoon.
I will cheer for Grant the minute he's a head coach on the OHL.
Oh my God, Kyle! All you have to do is you got to really want it. That's all it takes is you got to want it.
If I knew that, I could have beat Wayne Gretzky's score by now. I'm telling you. I got actually one more thing. I heard that the silent generation was making fun of the boomers of how soft they are. Did you hear about that?
I did not. What's the silent generation?
That's the one that they raised the boomers, is the silent generation.
Oh.
They said that they were soft. They said that they couldn't do what they did growing up back in the 1920s and the Depression era and all that stuff, and the boomers didn't know how hard their parents had it during the wars and all that stuff, right? So I heard that the silent generation called the boomers all soft and all that stuff.
You're such a millennial. You bring your millennial crap onto my show, young man. Okay.
Oh, all right. And a big raise to you there, Mike, for the whole campaign. My other half and I, we didn't win, but you know what? It was for a good cause. For everybody, yourself, your other half that, she won, was it Woman of the...
she was a nominee for Woman of the Year, yep.
Yep, you have to get her on the radio station with you and interview her. And everybody else that helped out, all the causes and the companies and everything, it was awesome to see that. And, unfortunately, I didn't want you to put that team that shall not be named on you. But, again, it was all for a good cause. So thank you very much, Mike, and can't wait to hear it all about next year, about even getting a bigger jackpot. So... thanks a lot, Mike. Have a good day, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle. You too. I love it. Yes, and I love what Kyle said, that, even though he nor his girlfriend won the 50-50 jackpot on Friday, there could only be one winner, and it was Jeff Wenzel, and we're really happy for him. And I got to meet him over the weekend. We met out at Block 3 when I was there yesterday, picking up Block 3's donation, and we sat down, had a drink with Jeff and his wife, Jen, and it was great. But so many people over the course of the weekend talked about having been tuned in Friday afternoon, waiting for their phone to ring, and it didn't. But they realized, you know what, we put money in for a good cause. And that's what matters the most in all of this. It's a lot of fun to win a lot of money, which Jeff did, but really this was about raising money. And more than $121,000 just in the 50-50 raffle for cystic fibrosis research. I love it, and I appreciate that sentiment, Kyle. And yes, I know Kyle is right. Every generation thinks the generation that came next is soft. But I couldn't help. I got a good chuckle. Maybe I was just in the right mood for that little Gen X rant last evening. So I recorded it and shared it with you. We're not better, but we sure are tougher. Because we would go to work hungover and roof a house no matter how bad we felt. Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. My buddy Cooney from Environment Canada is just trolling me now because I was complaining about the weather. He says, did you hear about the frost delay at Foxwood Golf Course this morning? It's June the 2nd. Frost delays should not exist. I had my seat heater on when I came to work today. I did. Mark, you're on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mike. It's been a late summer, Mike, eh?
What summer? It's ridiculous.
What I mean.
It's still winter out there.
Yet.
No.
So I have a theory, Mike.
Okay.
And times are a-changing, okay? I'm predicting it's going to be a long summer going right through December.
I'll take it, but I don't believe you. I hope you're right. I don't believe you, though.
Believe me, Mike.
Okay, Mark, I will.
I'll call you back. And by the way, Mike.
Yeah, buddy.
Excellent job on your campaign.
Thanks, pal.
I can't believe. I can't wait to hear the final product. You're probably going to get $200K. And good going, Michael.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. I will give you the final number as soon as I have a final number. Mark thinks we're going to hit $200K. You never know. Toll-free Jay, my man. Good afternoon.
Well, I do notice that once the air gets above 80 degrees, like then the humidity comes in, and that's a real problem for me. I do have breathing issues.
I'm sorry to hear that. I know, Jay, that I'm not. When I say how much I like the heat, it's not comfortable for everybody, and it's difficult on people who have trouble breathing. But damn it, it's too cold for me. I'm sorry.
Well, now before you were as sparse on top as you now are, did you always have that problem?
Yes, I always had this problem. I was born this way with no hair.
Well, it's just that I always had an appreciation of the cold, but I just wasn't sure. Some people it's different, depending on the conditions, of course.
Of course. Listen, here's the thing, okay? We signed a contract in this country, and the contract is we get to enjoy 4 seasons. That's what makes the winter bearable, because you know something better is coming. The problem is when that better thing does not come. And we went through a terrible winter. We deserve better. That's how I feel about it. Jim, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike, and congrats on your Farwell for Hire campaign. It was a great run.
Oh, thanks very much.
No problem. Mike, I'm calling about this Gen X meme that you're playing, and I speak as a proud Gen Xer myself. I love all the nostalgia. I hate modern music. But these rants, they drive me nuts. I feel like it's really not fair to today's kids. And I have 2 kids who are going through, who are Gen Zers, and they're struggling. There's a lot going on that, Gen X, we were lucky, Mike. We thrived in a time of unprecedented peace and prosperity globally. You have to look back and realize, it was a different world, and we had a lot of opportunity that kids don't have today. I don't think.
Well, they can still get drunk, go to work hungover.
Well, see, I get tired of hearing about how we grew up drinking out of water hoses. Yeah, that's great, and it's a lot of fun and all that. But you know what? Like kids today, you got to give them a little more slack. They're not. We didn't have to deal with the internet, AI, the lack of prospects that are currently going on. The whole current political mood in the world is bad, and we didn't have to deal with any of that.
I get you, Jim, and I got to get the news, and I'm sorry, but again, it's a little bit of fun, and we did go to work hungover. We didn't call in hungover. Anyway, it's the Mike Farwell Show. Rant or Rave continues. 570 News Radio and Rogers. Jim's call just before the news got me thinking, and I'm sorry I had to cut it so short. It wasn't due to the content. It's that I was late for the news. I should have asked Jim to hold, and we could have talked longer. And you're welcome, Jim, to call back, or anybody that wants to respond further. Because, look, I played that Gen X bit. We're not better. We're just built different. We're tougher. Gen X versus millennials or zennials or whatever the case may be. It's just for fun. Because Kyle nailed it earlier when he talked about every generation thinking the next generation coming along is softer, doesn't work as hard, whatever, is more poorly mannered, whatever the case may be. But when Jim called to come to the defense of the youth of today and all of the myriad problems that they're dealing with, including global politics, global conflict, I mean, yeah, I guess back in the 1980s, Star Wars didn't matter. Not the movie, right? But, the threat of nuclear war between Russia and the United States, or we talked back then about the possibility of World War III. I distinctly remember a class in high school, I think it was one of my history classes, where we actually measured what the impact on the city of Kitchener would be if an atomic bomb landed. And we even picked targets, like what would be a likely target. And if, okay, let's just say the bomb lands there, and what's the impact of that, et cetera. Anyway, look, I'm not trying to say that kids today have worse problems than we had, or we had worse problems than they had. I was just having a little bit of fun, but Jim does get me thinking of something that I read recently, and I've kept in the studio because it resonated with me so much. And it's under the headline of "You are likely more resilient than you think." And the passage that I highlighted is as follows: resilience isn't some rare trait possessed by a lucky few. It's an ordinary magic, a set of behaviors, thoughts, and actions that we can cultivate. Still, resilience doesn't mean simply toughing it out, nor does it mean that people don't suffer. Rather, it's the ability to bend without breaking, and it's something that we can nurture. So how can we become more resilient? And I think that we have lost our willingness to build that resilience. Instead of, you know what? You went out and drank too much last night. You're hungover this morning, but you're still going into work to roof that house or do whatever it is you do. We're just going to, it's okay. You don't have to face the adversity, however minor that adversity is. I do think that we have moved away from building that resilience. That's my take on it. But if you feel differently, you can let me know as we continue rant or rave this afternoon. Philip, good afternoon.
Good morning or afternoon, Mr. Mike.
Are you just having a late start to the day, my friend, huh?
No. I'm just so used to listening to you from 9 a.m. I kind of lose track. To get off your Debbie Downer subject.
What's Debbie Downer? Who's Debbie Downing?
the Gen X. Like, nobody knew I drank till I went to work sober one day. But the reason that I'm calling.
Yes.
Yesterday was a beautiful spring day. I pulled out the rag top and needed a destination, put on Blue Rodeo, and went to Barry's Asparagus Farm. And I was expecting your mug would be there, but I neglected to check your Facebook postings the last couple of days, and I learned yesterday why there's a change of schedule for you to be there Father's Day, or June the 18th.
June 15th. June 15th.
Oh,
June
okay.
15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry you went all the way there. I hope it was a nice drive regardless.
Oh, it was perfect. The back way, and the premises are beautiful. The people are beautiful. The product's beautiful. Like, it's therapy going there to see it. Like,
yeah, you're right about that. And Tim's not bad for a knucklehead Bruins fan. Like, he's a pretty good guy, that Tim Barry.
Okay, good to know.
Are you going to come back on the 15th?
Weather permitting.
Okay.
And it's just sorry to see all that urban sprawl slowly encroaching that direction.
Well, hey, listen, we are a place to grow.
Yeah, way of the world.
It is.
Yeah, I was looking forward to those deep fried asparagus that he has.
You're gonna get it on the 15th, I promise.
Okay, good.
Okay, Phil.
All right.
Thanks for the call. I'm sorry for that. It was beyond our control. Yes, originally scheduled yesterday, so let me please remind you again, June 15th, Father's Day, we're going to be at Barry's Asparagus Farm and Country Market. Beautiful spot. You heard Phil describe it. Deep fried asparagus off the field, into the back of the schmuck truck, through the fryer, and out with some garlic aioli. That'll be our final, the pièce de résistance for Farwell for Hire fundraising this year. That's on June the 15th. And this Thursday, we invite you to the Research and Tech Park on Hagee Boulevard in Waterloo. We're going to have an afternoon beer garden starting at 2 on Thursday afternoon. Play a little hooky from work. Be resilient. And come and join us for a celebratory drink following the Farwell for Hire month of fundraising. Patty, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm the Patty that called in earlier, and I had forgotten about what day was the Research and Tech place, and I'm going to do my best to get there. And congratulations. What a terrific campaign, as always.
Well, thank you, Patty. We're going to be there on Thursday afternoon, so if you want to come out and have a beverage with us, we'd love to see you.
I'd love to do that. Also, I am the turkey drop lady who lives in Listowel, the T-shirt I sent you from the WKRP thing last Christmas.
I remember, yes.
So that's me. I'd love to meet. We've never met. I also worked at the long-term care where Mike Hinchberger was.
Oh, my goodness.
So there's a lot of connection stuff that I will do my best. My husband and I will do our best to get there Thursday. Looking forward to it.
Would love to see you, Patty. Thank you.
All right. Great stuff you're always doing.
Thanks, Patty. Really appreciate it. Take care now.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, Michael Hinsberger. I'll tell you what. Was there a bigger Rangers fan in this community than the late Mike Hinsberger? I'm not sure, but great to hear from Patty. And yes, be like Patty and her hubby and come on out Thursday afternoon starting at 2, Research and Tech Park in Waterloo, an outdoor beer garden. We'll have some tents to protect you from the sun. If the sun stays out, let's go. Either way, we'll be out there. We'll have some drinks. We'll celebrate a great campaign, a month of fundraising, and hang out for a little bit, okay? Rant or Rave continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is for your rants or your raves. Get it off your chest, onto the air. Next, we go to Terry. Good afternoon, Terry.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. What time is the berries thing going to be at on the 15th? At noon again?
Yeah, I don't think I have the exact times, but noon sounds about a fair guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I'm thinking of getting out there if it doesn't rain.
Fingers crossed, Terry. We got to get some good weather eventually.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have that drive-through thing again like last year. But it's funny you were talking about that Generation X and millennials and all that. The boomers, I thought they were the lazy ones. All they wanted to do was collect pogie and act like hippies, get under a shady tree and smoke pot and fart. That's true.
Not all of them, Terry. My parents are boomers. My father's the hardest working son of a gun I've ever met.
They're probably the early boomers, right? The late 40s.
Yeah, he was mid-40s. Yeah, 46 he was born.
By the 60s, they're all like lazy hippies. So anyway, the tail end of the boomers. So
I'm going to put you in that category, Terry.
Yeah, it's interesting. Grant was talking about the Memorial Cup. The same thing happened last year. The London Knights killed everybody in the round robin and then lost in the finals. And the team with the hat, I hate saying Medicine Hat because I always mix up because I always think of that city near Detroit, Madison Heights. So I always end up saying Madison Hat. But anyway, yeah, they beat London in the round robin, and they got their waxed there in the final. So it was a reverse of last year.
Tough to beat the same team twice in a tournament like that.
Very, very hard, yeah. So, yeah, that's all I had to say, Mike. And have yourself a good day.
Thanks, Terry. You too. Good to hear from you, as always. Whatever you got to say it during our Talkback Hour. Mayor Jake, good afternoon.
Mike, how are you now?
I'm well, and you?
Not so bad. So I got a rant for you, and I'm a little ticked off. And so last Wednesday I was in Wellesley, a beautiful little town, driving through, and I see a knob on the side of the road dumping garbage out of his car, beer cans, Burger King wrappers, the whole 9 yards. So I pull over, have a little chat with him. I said, hey, before I make a complaint, I said, I'll give you a chance to pick up that garbage. He shrugged his shoulders like, yeah, I didn't see it, jumped in his car and took off. I got a license plate and a photo of the garbage. So I call the region and call bylaw. Bylaw says, no, that's not our responsibility. It's a police matter. Okay. So I call the police. No, it's not our responsibility. It's a bylaw issue. So who is responsible for taking care of these matters? Because both sides are saying, no, it's them. And then the other one, no, it's them. So who's going to take responsibility for this?
Well, you are, and I'm glad you are. And I do believe this would be those no dumping signs and whatnot. Those are bylaws. So I would agree with your first course of action here. I think that should have been the region that was responsible for it.
And and when the region said, do you have all the evidence? I said, I have photos. I have everything that you need to make a conviction, and they choose not to pursue it. How they don't pursue it when you have actual evidence of it is beyond me. But when I'm elected and I'm in, they'll have no choice but to make convictions. I've had enough of these people dumping their garbage wherever they please. It's not going to happen when I'm mayor.
I look forward to that, Mayor Jake. Thanks for sharing the story. Appreciate it.
Have a good one, pal.
You too, my friend. Listen, that takes some guts, and I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it because that could lead to some sort of confrontation that we don't want. But I'm like 98.8% sure this does fall under bylaw in the township, so regional on that road. And just that's disappointing, right? Somebody just didn't want to assume responsibility for following up. Didn't feel like doing their job that day when the call was made. But this is the sort of stuff, right? This is the sort of stuff that gets really frustrating. I'll never forget the day I was driving along Wellington 124 between Guelph and Erin. And the person in front of me threw a fast food bag out the window and it flew back and hit my windshield. But I'm like, who does that? Who actually just opens their window and chucks a fast food bag out the window? Utterly ridiculous. Michael, you're on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. I just have a comment about distracted driving. I know we're all concerned about distracted driving, but I see a lot of people driving with a dog on the lap. Like, what is going on with that? If that's not distracted driving, I don't know what is. So,
Michael, I appreciate that call. In some cases, based on the behaviors I've seen on the road these days, I think the dog might be the better driver. But I'm with you. And I love my Rosie. I love her to pieces. But when she is in the car, she's in the back seat or in the seat next to me. She's never on my lap. And quite frankly, I'm with you. You want to talk distracted driving? Put a living creature in your lap. I'm also old enough to remember. You want me to go back to the whole Gen X thing? Oh, yeah. We would sit up in the front seat or sit on the bench seat in the car and just have no seatbelt on and sit on your parents' lap while you're driving in a vehicle. That happened in the 1970s. And I'm still here to tell you about it. You weak, soft little youngsters today. It's all in fun. If we can't make fun of other generations, what can we do? This is the Mike Farwell Show, Rant or Rave on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, thanks to Dennis for the info via email to Mike at 570news.com. Says littering is a criminal offense in Ontario under the Ontario Highway Traffic Act. I said I was only 98.8% sure it fell under bylaws. So maybe that littering that Mayor Jake saw was indeed a police issue. Dennis says you can ask the chief about it when he's on the show tomorrow, because yes, tomorrow is the first Tuesday of the month, and that means a full hour with Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell and Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up the Traffic Services Unit. And I'll just add that to the list of questions I have, because another question I have is about school resource officers, which we used to have here in the region, but our public school board pulled back on. And now Ontario's Education Minister, Paul Calandra, says, no, those resource officers belong in schools.
I firmly believe that having school resource officers in the classroom is extraordinarily important. We are going to work with police services across the province of Ontario. And as I said, it's going to be mandatory that those police services that have a program available, that school boards allow them to come in. I think it builds not only safety and security in a school, but also mutual respect. I have absolute faith in our police services to work with us and work with school officials to ensure that it is a program that works as it is intended to work. And I know that police forces across the province are going to be excited. I've heard from parents who are excited at the opportunity that this might exist. And we will work to make sure that it is in the best interest of all students. I firmly, as a parent, I completely disagreed when the decision was made in a number of boards to withdraw resource officers. from the school. We're going to put them back in. We're going to make it mandatory, and we're going to make sure that we work on doing it in a way that is beneficial to students and teachers.
And that is Ontario Education Minister Paul Calandra. So a question that I have for Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell tomorrow when he's in studio for Ask the Chief. The fact that he's here for the full hour along with Staff Sergeant Griffiths gives you the opportunity to have policing questions answered as well. So that happens tomorrow between 11 and noon on the show, and so much more. We're already getting lined up for you, including a chat with the chief meteorologist at the Weather Network. The Weather Network is out with its summer forecast, which hints at better days to come. But I want to know. I want to know about the 5 sucky months, full months of sucky weather to start this year. January through May was utter trash weather-wise. So we'll get some insight on that and find out how it stacks up to years in human history. Also, did you know that the Township of North Dumfries wants to administer its own speed camera program? So you've got the city of Kitchener saying to the region, we want out of your program. We don't like the way you're applying it. North Dumfries is now not only saying they want out, they just want to do their own. Hey, North Dumfries, what makes you think you're so special? So we'll talk about that on the show tomorrow. And one of our region's most beloved entertainers gets celebrated the way he deserves later this week. We'll talk about that on the show tomorrow as well. Lots to get into when we reconvene right here tomorrow morning at 9. An update from the 570 News Center, and then Rob Snow, Now You Know, coming up. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.